Hello, everyone. I am Shivani Mehta, your host, and you have tuned into the Project IMG podcast, the voice of international medical graduates. Today, I have a very special guest who is an international medical graduate from a Caribbean medical school who has matched into internal medicine in the United States. So, from studying in the Caribbean to working as a PGY1 resident in Wyckoff Heights Medical Center in Brooklyn, New York, I present to you Dr. Yash Garg. How are you doing, Dr. Garg?
Hi, good morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So, can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a PGY1. Started my journey from Avalon University School of Medicine. It's a medical school in Caribbean. And I actually came from India, so I was like a very unusual Caribbean student, not from US or Canada. So that was really interesting. It was a really interesting journey, and I'm ready to share it with you guys.
Wow, we're excited to hear all about it because it's a very, as you mentioned yourself, it's a very unusual journey that you took, especially because you were coming from India, went to a Caribbean school, and then ended up doing residency in the United States. So you've kind of been all over, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. What sparked your interest in medicine?
So as a child, I was always interested in medicine. That was my go-to profession since beginning, I would say. But like there were several moments in my life where I've been through like my parents, my grandparents have been through a lot of medical how do I say it? Like a lot of medical procedures which were non-intentional and which made me think that some of the medical practitioners back home are not like just progressing in the way it should be and just making money and just doing it for money. So that sparked my interest further to change medicine and to make it better and to make it more approachable and to make patients feel safer because sometimes patients always have that mentality like they do not trust the practitioner. So that what sparked my interest to change in the field, and that's why I chose it like more confidently to participate in medicine.
That's great to hear because you don't hear like you hear a lot of different reasons why people go into medicine, but the background story that you told me is very interesting because it's stemming from the fact that you kind of want to build that relation of trust with your patient from the forefront, right? Like you want to present yourself as a medical professional that wants to build that that level of trust with your patient that they will listen to what you have to say, but in doing so, they're not going to end up making a mistake, right? So that's very important, and that's like a responsibility we as medical professionals need to recognize that we have. So that's very interesting to see. So thank you for sharing that. So you said that you started off in India. How did you choose to go to a Caribbean school versus going to a medical school in India?
I feel that God was always with me in this journey. Although I say this because like there were several moments where I was just feeling that I should quit medicine because like it's not going the way I planned. But then like it's always a God's plan. I believe in that. Let's start with like 2015 when I graduated from high school. I took medical exam, the entrance exam we have back in India, and that supposedly got canceled after I took it, and that delayed everything. But then it was my cousin who was like looking into schools outside India, and that that changed my focus. That it's not necessary for us to practice medicine in India. I can just practice outside. So I changed my focus and started looking school. And I never knew about schools in Caribbean in the first place. So it was my cousin who gave me that idea to to check that place out. And after researching, I found out like not all Caribbean schools are good, but I still like whatever my parents could afford. I just completely like went for it. I'm like, at the end of the day, it depends on all the hard work which I do. It doesn't matter what's my background, what's my school. Uh, of course, like it will affect it for short term, but for long term, these things doesn't matter. So that was my main thought process when I chose a Caribbean school. And once I entered Caribbean school, then of course there were so many challenges that, as first of all, you're coming to a different country or away from your home, all the way like how many miles? I should 3,000, 5,000 miles away from school, from home, and that's completely different experience. Culture is different. Then you meet people who are completely of a different cultural background. So it will have an impact. But at the end of the day, if my focus was just like I'm in a position where either I hit it or not. So I always thought with that mentality that if I have to achieve something, I'll have to work hard, and nobody can change anything and except me myself. So that's how I thought about it and kept working on. But then back home, my friends who were into medicine as well, when they started medical school around the same time, and I feel very very lucky that I didn't went to school back home, because now they're facing challenges there because of COVID crisis, uh, because of COVID crisis. Then there have been exam delays. There have been policy changes. So many things going on back in India. So they have that has caused delay in their graduation. But I got graduated earlier. I got residency earlier. So again, in short term, it matters, but in long term, that this timing does not matter. But in the but I feel fortunate enough that like God made me took that path so that I could afford all these delays, and I saved time on that.
That's great to hear. So, since you've been through the Caribbean school system, do you have any advice for our listeners that are either considering Caribbean schools or are currently in Caribbean schools?
So only advice for me would be try like not everyone is rich. Not everyone can afford a big school in Caribbean. But always try for like something which is recognizable. That's my first thing. Always choose a school which is more like, which is accredited, which has which follows all the ECFMG criteria for certification, because that might be uh, like a that might be something which might change your journey, and I'll explain that later during the interview. And second thing would be if come with a mentality that you have to work hard. Coming to a Caribbean school, it's not a piece of joke, and just like keep working hard. There will be days where you'll have to give your 100%, more than 100%, because you in Caribbean system there's a mentality that we are competing among ourselves, but at the end of the day we should always have this thought in our mind that it's not just 100 students or 150 students in the school. It's about other people as well, and there's so much going on in outside world. Like in that small Caribbean island, we get stuck with that thought process that it's just 100 people we have to compete with. But at the end of the day, so many people are doing so many things in life. So that's our greatest competition.
No, that's very true. So thank you so much for sharing that. So, okay, so let's start. We talked a little bit about the Caribbean. So how do you think that Caribbean schools prepared you well for the USMLE, which is the main hurdle that a lot of students come across when they're trying to apply for residency in the United States?
I would say the schools are just meant to guide you. At the end of the day, it's on you and yourself. The amount of hard work you do, you'll get the results. The schools are just meant to guide you when it comes to like what resources should I choose. School will help you. If you ask them, okay, I'm not understanding a certain topic, they'll help you. But at the end of the day, It's you. You have to read books. You have to read resources. You have to do questions that will prepare you. So never go with that thought process that somebody is going to teach you. We are not kids anymore. It's our responsibility to learn. It's our responsibility to understand everything.
That's very true. At the end of the day, like whichever school you go to, of course, it has some value. In what you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, like you can go to the best school and still not do well, because if you don't put in the hard work, then you're not going to really get anywhere. So that's actually very true what you said. So anybody that's listening right now that's considering a Caribbean school or any other school that has, some stigma associated with it, maybe think about it that, okay, yes, it might have a stigma, but at the end of the day, if it gets you to your goal, and if you're willing to put in the hard work that goes into it, then maybe that is something that you should consider. So let's move on from here and talk about your USMLE journey itself. So how did you prepare for your USMLE step one mainly, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so so I started my medical school in 2015. I was actually in another university called St. Martinus University School of Medicine. I did my 2 years there of basic sciences. Then they usually give us like 6 months period where you can prepare for step one. And after that, if you don't do it, then they start charging us fees. So that was one of the motivating factors, because I didn't want to pay that fee. So I had to finish everything within 6 months. And second thing would be I always stay close to school when it comes to learning and reviewing stuff, because if you're at home and studying, then that would always like, how to say, like, that would always make you less focused, and you'll not be that serious when you're like away from home. That with that thought process, I was always around my rotation site and studying for step one. So I took around 4 months to study for it. Did first aid multiple times. I didn't count. I never count on a resource how many times I'm using it. It's just every day I have to. That was my target when I was studying step one. Every day I have to finish a topic, and that's my. I used to choose. Okay, I have to finish gastroenterology, and I have to finish anatomy and physio in gastroenterology. So I used to choose the topics I have to focus for today, and then go for U-World questions for the same topics. And that I never counted how many times I'm reading that topic. If I don't learn it, if I don't memorize it, if I still feel uncomfortable, I have to read it again. Doesn't matter. I have done it 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. I'm pretty sure I read like first aid more than 10 times still. I don't know. I never counted on resources. And even for U-World questions, I always kept doing them. Never counted on questions. Always kept reading the explanation which they give at the end of the question, because there's always something new they keep updating as per the new guidelines. So things keep changing, and they keep changing the text whenever you repeat a question. Not every time, but usually it changes. So it always gives you an idea, and they try to make it easier. Every concept they try to make it easier by changing the text there. So maybe it doesn't hit you 1 time, 2 time, it might hit you the 10th time. So that's how I kept studying for step one. Other than that, I didn't use any video resources. When I was in med school, I just studied for Sketch. I just studied through Sketchy for microbiology and pharmacology. So it's always stuck in my head. And me and my friends in med school, we were always like reviewing Sketchy together. We still discuss them together whenever we talk about it. So we remember Sketchy a lot. Maybe it's our photographic memory, which is more better. But yeah, Sketchy was always like the best resource for me for microbiology, pharmacology. That time there was no boards and beyonds, which I heard from new medical students. So I don't know about that. I cannot comment on boards and beyonds. But other than that, I didn't use any other resources. I did buy QBank from Kaplan. I did buy QBank from USMLE RX, but it never helped me. I was just like in a floating world. I didn't know what was going in those few banks. I just focused mainly through New World and NBMEs is the last one. Uh, NBMEs guide you towards your targeted score, one thing, and it always gives you motivation because you always scored less scores compared to your actual score. So it always motivates you that you have to work harder. So always, I'll tell my like upcoming residents that NBMEs do every week in your like when you're in a dedicated prep time, because that will help you to study further, because you'll get bored at the end of the day to read the same topic 10 times. So do the NBME that day and you'll realize you should not be bored. You should continue studying.
Wow, that's interesting. Have you also used Pathoma? That seems to be a popular resource that a lot of people like to use too.
Yes, for step one, I didn't use Pathoma for everything because I always believed in like textbook learning. Uh, I used Pathoma just to make my concepts easier in OBGYN cancers. So like all the ovarian, uterine cancers, breast cancers. That for those topics I use Pathoma. But other than that, I was mainly focused on the book knowledge and you would.
Okay, so it seems like First Aid and UWorld and NBMEs are basically the main resources that you suggest to use to study for step one. Is that completely correct?
Yeah, I would say that first is not a resource. The main resources is your knowledge from med school, how much you can gain. Never think that whenever you're like all the med school year one and year two, I'll suggest them that never think that this is not coming in your world. Step one, step two, because there can be small points which can change the way you think about that certain topic, and which might stand you higher when you're doing residency, because not everyone knows those things, and if you know it, you look smarter. You'll be more you'll be doing better in residency as well. So never think it with that mentality that, oh, this is not in step one. That's what the main focus is for schools these days, even like US med schools, I'd say. Not trying to hit them, but even I have cousins who are in US med school. Even they say that they get the knowledge through whether it's step one important, step one important. So so read something to learn rather than just focus on exam, and keep the concepts in mind. Like important physio patho concepts are very important, because those will help you. Those will always help you to um, like understand a certain topic. I've never memorized medicine, I'll say. So always focus on concepts, and that will help you. So keep resources on the side. Learn from books in first 2 years. If you do get 6 months, like I did get from my med school, use those 6 months to build on those concepts by using resources and doing questions, because you have to apply those concepts, and the questions will help you to apply those resources or those concepts.
That's great advice. Thank you. Okay, so how did you, once you took step one, then I'm assuming that you started rotations, right?
Yes. So here comes my red flag. When I was supposed to start my rotations, since I was Indian, I needed a visa to stay in the United States. So for that, I flew back from the rotation site to get the visa. I was in India trying to get visa, but then unfortunately it didn't work out. I didn't get the visa that time. So I had to stay like 6 more months in India to build up on my visa paperwork. And I had my medical school was really helpful to send me a letter saying that, okay, you can come back to Caribbean and apply from Caribbean if Indian embassies are giving you a hard time. So that all paperwork took like around 6 months again. So I wasted like 6 months there. by just waiting and contemplating what's going to happen. And then once that I got the paperwork and everything, then I flew back to Caribbean, and from Caribbean I applied for visa. I got it from there. Then I flew back to Michigan, where I did my all the core rotations in Pontiac General Hospital.
Okay, so do you think that Caribbean schools prepared you well to enter residency?
I mean, how much prepared you are from med school, residency is a different ball game. You'll always be very nervous in the first few months. What's going on? You'll be confused because there's just not patient care. There's also documentation. There's also approaching to attendings, and there's also talking to families. So there are like 5-6 different responsibilities, which as med students, we don't usually have. So that will always keep you running in your mind that, okay, that's what's not enough. So it's not always enough, but of course it makes you prepared enough for medical knowledge. I'll say you'll have enough medical knowledge when it comes to do your rotations or do your residency.
Okay, so do you have any advice for any of our listeners that are currently about to enter their residency? Do you have anything to tell them?
I would say people who are ready to enter residency right now, just enjoy the last 3 months of your life. I would say because you're completely free right now. If you haven't written step 3, you can finish your step 3 within 1 month. But again, no pressure, because though these 3 months will be the only free time which you can spend with your family for like 24 hours, like for the full 7 days. Because after that, majority of programs will keep you busy, either by making you you have a lot of projects, you'll have a lot of patients, you'll have 6 days in a week to work. So there will be so many things which will keep you busy during residency. I don't even know how my first year flew. So that's something I would advise, that like if you wanted to go somewhere, travel somewhere, go travel right now. If you wanted to learn something new, which you wanted to learn, you can learn right now. Because after that, everything you can still do, but everything will be slower pace. So something which you can do in 1 month, you probably need 10 months to do it. So that's my advice. Like enjoy right now. There's no pressure. Yeah, and come with relaxed mind to the residency. Never think that like somebody's trying to be mean, somebody's trying to like demotivate you when you enter the residency, and everyone is ready to help you. Especially in my program, people who are joining Wyckoff, I would say that it's like very friendly program when it comes to approaching people. Everyone's very friendly. Everyone's very motivating, and they'll give you a feedback if you need one.
That's great. Okay, so let's backtrack just a little bit, because how did you apply to residency? Can you tell us a little bit about your journey there, how you built your CV? Did you have any hobbies or things that you included in your, let's say, your personal statement or your CV that you think helped or hurt your application into residency?
So I'd say that always include your red flags. I included my red flag. That red flag I included in my CV. What happened? Because if you ever applied for the residency or NRMP match, they'll always ask you the timeline for everything. So if there is something which you don't explain them, then that's a red flag. So always try to explain what happened between that period, which you are not mentioning in your CV. Okay, and try to connect it with education. Always try to connect it what you learned in those 6 months when you were away from med school, when you were away from medical research, when you were away from any medical experience you could have gained in those certain months. Always try to connect it with, okay, I was studying for this. I was trying to teach people. I was in a donation area. Like try to do something in those 2-3 months as well. That will portray that, okay, you were still rooted towards medicine. You were still committed. You were still motivated towards medicine in those 3 months. So that's the reasons being that medicine is a different field. It's not like normal engineering or computer science where, okay, you study one day and the rest of the life you can just explore your thoughts and work on the basics. Everything keeps changing in medicine every day. There will be new guidelines. There will be something new keeps happening every day in medicine. And the only thing program directors, according to me, look for is, are you still rooted towards it? Are you still committed? So if you mention that, okay, I was reading articles in those 3 months about medicine, that means you were still rooted, you were still committed towards medicine, and that's okay. That's not a big red flag then. So
go on, sorry.
Go ahead. What's your question?
No, I was just going to say that it seems like you're saying that, like, even though you have red flags, the way you present them to program directors is what is important. Like, there's nothing wrong with having red flags. Life happens.
There's nothing wrong. All the IMGs have red flags, because you are IMG in the first place. That's a red flag. So all of us have red flags. Having a red flag doesn't matter. How to focus, how to portray those red flags, and how to make a program director feel comfortable about how dedicated you will be during residency would affect everything, rather than just having a red flag.
Okay, fair enough. So now I want to address something that seems to keep coming up. And everybody is interested in building their CV by adding research to it. What advice do you have in regards to that, and how you can gain research experience?
In my personal thoughts, I never had any research. I still don't have a research experience. I'm trying harder as well. But I would say that having a research added to your CV will always add something to it. You can go into a better program. You can go into a university program with having a research in your CV. But at the end of the day, first focus on your scores. Now, they don't have step 1 scores. I heard that, but I don't know how things will change. But I still strongly feel, especially for non-US IMGs, having research matters, and it will always help you to get into more interviews, more programs. Because now you don't have step 1 scores first thing, so they'll focus more on other medical aspects. Just step 2 CK scores will not be enough. So I think the program directors will focus more on research as well. And I think my program is focusing on research too. So if my program is doing, I'm pretty sure other programs have as well. So having a research in your CV will add things, and it will always help you if you're looking for fellowships as well. So research will not change, will always help you, right? So it's not a bad thing to do a research. If you have time, go for it.
Do you think it would, I know you said it would help a person if they have research experience, but what about if they don't? Do you think that it would decrease their chances or hurt them when they're applying for residency?
So I will explain that by comparing two people, like a person A and person B. Person A has 260 in step 1. Person B also has 260 in step 1. Both have similar medical knowledge. But if person B has research, a program will be favoring person B rather than person A. But at the same time, not only research, I would say personal connections also change everything. If you have personal connections in a particular program, and if you can try to connect with them, try getting more LORs, that will, of course, have higher weightage compared to research. So research is not that significant when it comes to personal connections. I still feel personal connections are the number one thing, even before scores. Personal connections and uh, LORs, they are prioritized first compared to even scores.
Oh, wow. Okay, so is there anything that you would caution students to not do, whether it comes to their application, whether it comes to while they're applying for residency programs, any part of your journey that like you learned something that you kind of want to advise our listeners to not do?
So first of all, don't get discouraged on like small things. Even if you get bad score, don't get discouraged, uh, and don't try to explain your bad score to anyone. Okay, don't try to explain by giving reasons behind it. Nobody cares. Okay, so you have to take responsibility for your bad score. You have to explain. You have to be like, okay, I agree, I got bad score, but I want to improve on this. That would be the best answer if somebody asks you that why did you get this. Okay, never try explaining them, oh, because I had this in my family, I had that. So nobody cares. Okay, even though as medical professionals you're very compassionate, very compassionate, even somebody died in your family, nobody will care. Nobody will care about that when you're explaining them the reason. So never try to explain any reasons to anyone about your bad score. That's number one thing. Then second, I would say uh, always, yeah, always try to be around friends, discuss with them something, and always have someone whom you can share if something is happening to you, and don't share it with like share it with someone who is non-medical. Don't share it with someone who is medical because then you'll always get the same answers. Or trying to go into a share it with non-medical person would always might change your mindset, might give you more empathy. You'll have different ways of releasing your stress when like when something bad happens to you. So always have like somebody who can listen to you when something bad happens in your life. Okay, and it should I'll say that it should be a non-medical person because they don't understand anything. So they'll be more, you can explain them more easily or more broadly explain in details, and that will always like release your stress because you're explaining everything in detail. If you're explaining it to a medical advice or medical professional, you're always like, okay, I know, and he'll always try to cut you off, and that way you'll not be able to express everything you want to. So that would be my second advice. And rest, keep working hard, and don't just lose your focus.
I know this is going to probably sound a bit redundant, considering you gave such great advice just now. But do you have any advice for anybody that's just simply wanting to practice medicine in the United States, whether they are in the process of considering applying, whether they are just a medical student or even they're pre-med students? Do you have advice for them?
So I would say that it's a big commitment coming to field of medicine. Be prepared for that, uh, and don't come with a mindset that you'll be able to enjoy everything in your life. There'll be times when you'll have to like give away things like certain events in your life which might be important to you, and there might be some emergency happening which you'll have to like somehow be away from. And I'm sorry to say that there will be so many other things happening around you which you would want to join, but you cannot because you're stuck in the hospital with an emergency. So always come with that mindset. Second thing, always try to show that you are a hard worker and you're not you don't want to do a lousy job. Always try to show that. As a pre-med student, I would for a pre-med student, I would say that, like, if you show that you're a hard worker, because first year of residency would be just all about that. So if you can survive that, uh, the program directors will be more happy to take you, because you showed them, okay, you can stay in the hospital if something happens, and you can still finish your job. Third, uh, be try to find things which make your life easier. Always try to find shortcuts. Always try to find, but that should not affect the quality you should give it to your patients, of course. So those are my advice for like beginners for in medicine. Always try to think about the profession. It comes with a big commitment.
Okay, thank you so much. Like, this overall interview was so insightful, and you've given so much great advice about your journey, about what students should be doing, and how they can better themselves in the field of medicine. So I wanted to thank you on behalf of Project IMG for being a part of our podcast. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And also, I wanted to reach out to our listeners and thank you guys for tuning in today. So this is Shivani Mehta and Dr. Garg signing off. Thank you guys. Till next time.